Accra gets busy on this frequency. 92.7 3 FM.
It's Hot Edition. We're live on News Up here at Desawe Kanda. We're also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. You can also listen to us all across the world on 3news.com. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can stream us as well and on 3FM 927. You can watch everything that's happening in the studio, plus the images of what's happening in the Northeast region as we're hearing that the flooding there has claimed 5 lives. The death toll as a result of the floods in the Northeast region keeps rising by the day. The last count, 5 people have died as a result. Unfortunately, we'll give you an update on that shortly. Plus, a new movement restrictions for tricycle operations in the parts of Accra has also generated some reactions, especially from these tricycle operators. We'll be telling you more as we engage them, and also the dean of the municipalities later on the bulletin. Also, the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament continues a meeting with the military on deployment to Niger, while the former president of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, blames African woes on bad leadership. And he says that has to change. We'll give you details of that, plus the happenings in business, sports, and entertainment coming up over the next 60 minutes here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Stay with us. Let's get into the details now here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. I am Alfred Ocansey. Now, the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament has been meeting over a possible military deployment to Niger by Ghana. Now, the Ministers for National Security, Defense and Interior are in attendance. Now, that's the information that we're picking in. And the last time we checked on this meeting that's ongoing, we understand there's a possibility of a deployment of Ghana's military to also be part of this standby force that is going to be deployed by the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. Now, let's go on to the telephone. Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, is a security analyst who's been following this quite closely and has extensive experience in some of these previous cases of conflict, especially on the continent, for instance, in Sudan and other areas. And Colonel Festus Abuaje, retired, is joining us. Colonel, thank you so much for joining us here on Hot Edition. First of all, I want to find out your take on this development. We're hearing that there's a possibility of a deployment of the military from Ghana to be part of the standby force of ECOWAS. That's the indication we're getting from the meeting that's ongoing between the National Security, Defense, and Interior Ministries. We understand are in attendance. Hello? Hello? Unfortunately, we'll connect to Colonel Festus Abuaje shortly. And let's go straight to Parliament now, where my colleague Komla Kloche, who is there and also monitoring this crucial meeting, is joining us. Komla, first off, tell us what do we know about the latest with respect to this particular meeting, this crucial meeting between the National Security, Defense, and Interior Ministers who are in attendance?
So, Alfred, 13 members on the committee attended this meeting, excluding the the ministers of Defense, Interior, and National Security. What it is that it's emerging from our sources that the minority remains opposed or averse to the deployment, but the ministers are bent on this. Theirs is just to convince the committee that yes, indeed, they are part of a larger economic community of West African States group, and that they cannot just allow their colleagues in the sub-region go through this without them being a part of this. And so it was important for them to meet the committee and make their stance quite strong. In attendance also, understand where some of the security chiefs. But I mean, from what we are getting, it is quite clear that their mind is made up that they will do the deployment. As to also the number of troops that they are going to deploy, that has not been given to us yet by our sources. But what we can confirm is that yes, that meeting just ended a short while ago. But then the majority and the minority are split over this particular decision. It does appear that the majority members of the committee are siding with the ministers of state. Of course, this is an executive decision, for want of a better word, and so they are siding with their colleagues on the government side. And so it does appear, but we also getting an indication that the committee of chief of defense staff of the ECOWAS group are also meeting on Thursday. In fact, that meeting would happen at the Burma camp on Thursday, the 17th of August at 9 a.m., where they would have, for want of a better word, a final deliberation on this matter ahead of the possible deployment that would commence shortly thereafter that meeting. So these are details that we are getting from that meeting. But as it is now, it does appear that there's a split on this. But the sources tell us that the ministers are bent on this deployment to Niger.
I see. Now, but we do know that the minority's position on that, its own way, especially the ranking on the Defense and Interior Committee, James Agalga, who has been consistent, and together with the ranking on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, they've all been consistent that it would be a wrong idea for Ghana to contribute troops or that's military to the ECOWAS standby force. So has that position come up in this meeting, and how has that been treated?
Yes, I mean, it emerged, but from what our sources are telling us, that appears to be a unified stance by the minority. But then, what the ministers and the majority are advancing has to do with the fact that, okay, yes, they are part of a larger sub-regional group. However, the adage of if your neighbor's house is on fire, you also need to get closer to water, but you should also try as much as you can to offer some help. And so they think that the records that Ghana has had, the stellar records that we have had in the past, in terms of their contribution to peace and security in the sub-region under the auspices of ECOWAS, this is not a time to ditch their neighbors. This is the time for them to stand up and speak for Niger and speak for the people of Niger and restore democratic rule or get the military out of the system and have a democratically elected leader now assume office. But, I mean, it's going to be a long road because it does appear that the minority is also indicating that they as a committee or a defense and interior committee cannot take a final decision on this matter, and it needs parliamentary approval, as in a larger 275 parliamentary approval. Well, as to what the next step is going to be, we are unaware, but since the chief of defense staff of the ECOWAS sub-regional group are meeting on Thursday, we can only wait. But there are indications pointing to the fact that this is very possible in the coming days.
Thank you so much, Kamala Cloche. Appreciate you. And he is our chief parliamentary correspondent here at Media General. Let's go on to the other telephone line now. And Colonel Festus Abaje retired, international security analyst, also joining us. And Colonel, thank you so much for your time here on Hot Edition. That was our parliamentary correspondent who is monitoring this crucial meeting that we understand both the Interior Minister and the Defense Minister are all in attendance, and then also the National Security Minister as well is in attendance, and there's some indication, strong indication, that Ghana might contribute troops to the ECOWAS standby force. Is this going to hurt us in any way, based on at least this strong indication that we're picking from this meeting? Kenel.
Well, thanks for having me, Alfred. First of all, whether we belong to a multilateral group or not, the national interest is what all decisions and all actions should be centered on. So the question we need to ask ourselves as Ghanaians, and by Ghanaians I mean the institutions that we've created, is the intervention in Niger in our national interest? Having considered all the different scenarios, including the risk and the challenges, the threats, and so on and so forth, at the end of the intervention, would Ghana's interest have been served? Now, elsewhere, I was having a conversation, and my attention was drawn to Article 40 of the Ghana Constitution, which covers international relations. Not surprisingly, the first provision under this article is that in our dealings with other nations, our government, the government that we elect, shall promote and protect the interest of Ghana. So what is the interest of Ghana in the intervention in Niger? During the decision, it should be clear that when the government comes out to say that Ghana is going to be part of the ECOWAS intervention, that the government articulates how that is going to serve the national interest. But going forward, before you end that provision, it also says that we shall first pursue pacific settlement of disputes, that settlement of international disputes by peaceful means. So the question is, what peaceful means have Ghana been part of in resolving the impasse or the deadlock in Niger? Is it in terms of 10 days? Is it in terms of a few delegations have been rebuffed? Is it because the junta is threatening to put on trial, the deposed president? So the debate must go on, and the debate must be very, very objective. Indeed, when you come back from our constitution and you go to the provisions, the Treaty of ECOWAS to start with, and then the Protocol of 1999, which establishes the mechanism for regional security, peacekeeping, and conflict resolution, and so on, there is no way that ECOWAS says that we shall intervene in a member state. ECOWAS talks about peacekeeping. And we should not pretend that in 1999 or 1993, when we were writing the treaty, the revised treaty, or 1999 when we were writing the mechanism, or in 2001 when we were writing the protocol on democracy and good governance, or 2008 when we established the ECOWAS conflict prevention framework, that we did not understand the difference between peacekeeping and peace enforcement. They are two different things. So my argument all along has been that what is happening in Niger is a constitutional crisis. If you want to be very pragmatic, in a study that I'm doing, and indeed, if you go by what others are saying, that there have been about 7 coups and so on and so forth, and if you add unconstitutional changes of government by civilians, you'll be counting about 17, 18 such incidents. Are we saying that going forward, any time there is that kind of unconstitutional change or assertion of power by unconstitutional means, ECOWAS is going to evade? And the other question we've been asking is, what if that unconstitutionalism, as I put it, happens in, let's say, Nigeria or happens in Senegal? These are considerations that we need to put on the table and discuss. It must not be very narrowly what I think other people call parochial interests and so on. So far, Ghana has not told us what the risks are. You see what I mean? It's just saying that we belong to a multilateral organization called ECOWAS. And we signed the ECOWAS Treaty and so on and so forth. Does that mean that when ECOWAS is going into a ditch, we go along with ECOWAS into the ditch? Then the government has not told us where it's going to find the means to support this endeavor. Some have suggested it's going to come from France. Look, we're going to compromise our sovereignty, but there's no free lunch anywhere in the world. And I want Ghanaians to go and read Dr. Obed Asamoah's book, that thick book, and read how he articulates how both Nigeria and Libya were twisting the arms of Ghana to do the bidding of Nigeria and do the bidding of Gaddafi, just because we're in dire straits and they gave us oil and they paid for our troops in Ekomok. So if Ghana cannot pay for this intervention, Ghana must not be part of it. And I want to suggest that given the economic circumstances that we are in, it can never, or it will be very difficult in the national interest to spend money on this intervention when we need the money here at home. After all, national interest and national security is about the welfare of that individual called the Ghanaian.
Indeed. But I wanted to find out very briefly, what are the possible risks in this particular decision if it's so carried out that Ghana eventually contributes troops to this ECOWAS standby force, as we're hearing?
You see, in every operation of this nature, there is no plan that is the road and doesn't change. So we cannot base our intervention on the best case scenario that will go in and remove the CNSP, and that is the end. Let's look at the worst case scenario, where we don't succeed and we unhinge the political stability of Niger. The implication will be that the Al-Qaeda and the ISIL and the ISWAP and so on, who are fighting in that Sahel belt, will now overrun almost the whole of Burkina Faso, and then a greater part of Mali. And then we, the coastal, Guinea coastal states, will be feeling the pinch. So that security calculation, that risk, must be uppermost in our mind, that we don't unhinge the center of power in Niger. Then we come to the socio-economic. Already it's being said that the prices of onions have gone up, and that is going to affect those local traders in the informal sector who do business and who, promote Ghana's economy, the cattle and the goats and so on and so forth. These are things that we need to talk about. And the likelihood that this intervention in Niger might end up splitting ECOWAS into probably 2 or 3 blocks. Already we've seen the alliance or solidarity between the Francophones, which is 50% of the Francophone in West Africa.
True.
So these are things that I think the government must consult widely and listen to, professors of international relations, political science, security, as we say in Ghana, kominini. The fact that you are a government doesn't mean that you've got the prerogative through the majority in the legislature to declare war that Ghanaians in the long run will be the victims of, or that will be impacted. And all the indications are that this intervention, of course, it could go well, but it could also go wrong. And when it goes wrong, who picks up the pieces?
Very, very important questions that you raised there. Ken Officers about your retired. Thank you so much, as always.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Ken Officers about your retired is an international relations expert and also a respected international security analyst. There is had a stint on what's happening in South Sudan, for instance, in the past. So he understands the dynamics of how things play out in conflict zones, and he's raising fundamental concerns about the decision that we're hearing that there's a high possibility that Ghana might contribute troops to the ECOWAS standby force. This is the indication we're getting from a meeting which is ongoing, and we understand that the National Security Minister, the Defense and Interior Ministers are all in attendance in this meeting, and together with the minority also represented there, and the minority representation on the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament, the ranking on the Interior Committee of Parliament, that's James Agaga, has specifically stated in the past that they are opposed to any decision to contribute troops to this ECOWAS standby force. And also Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, who's the ranking on the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament, has strongly indicated that the minority is not in favor of any decision to contribute troops to the ECOWAS standby force. And you've heard a security analyst raising fundamental questions about how that is going to impact on us as a country. But the former Nigerian president, General Olusegun Obasanjo, has blamed bad leadership and governance as the reason for the woes of the African continent. According to the former Nigerian head of state, change can only happen if the youth take up key roles in governance by positively changing the narrative. According to the former Nigeria president, who was speaking at the 15th African Youth and Governance Convergence at Mankessim in the Central Region, the consistent blaming of colonialism, slave trade, among others, for the continent's problems is not entirely accurate.
This is where most of us get
the reason or cause for the situation we are in is simply, let us put it as it is simply leadership and governance. We are in bad shape. We are in bad situation because leadership and governance in our different countries, in our sub-region, and indeed in our region of Africa has not been what it should be. As I said last night, we may go far back as we may want to go. Go and blame, if you like, the colonial power. Go and blame, if you like, slave trade. But those who brought those things on us knew what they were doing. It was for their own economic interest and at our own expense. So, for 60 years or over, we have put colonialism behind us. For well over 150 years, we have put slave trade behind us. Then what excuse do we have to continue to blame slave trade? The slave trade has had its effect. Colonialism has had its effect. Neocolonialism has had its effect. But should we continue to pass the buck and look for scapegoats beyond ourselves and beyond our shores? I believe no.
And well, so that's what you're hearing. The former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President General Olusegun Obasanjo there. Let's stay a bit further on this. Now, Senior History and Political Studies lecturer at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, Professor Samuel Edujemfi is joining us on the telephone. Thank you so much, Professor Edujemfi, for time here on Hot Edition. So, this narrative of bad leadership on the continent being the bane of our problems has been widely accepted. But then again, what has to give? What has to change so that this narrative can actually change as well with what Obasanjo is saying?
It's always exciting to talk to you, my brother. I think that what must change fundamentally is the people, because if you place a Ghanaian or a Nigerian outside of the continent, an average one, of course, this person becomes a beacon of hope for other continents. So essentially, what we do to ourselves and for ourselves is that we don't give our best. So we need kind of, if you like, transformation in terms of how we think toward ourselves and toward our continent. Secondly, it's essential that we come back to the discussions on peer review, because the typical African leaders we've had, at least the past 20 years or so, have not really been able to give us the kind of leadership that we need as Africans. In fact, even in the Ghanaian context, I believe that we are in a leadership crisis. So once you look at the continent, you must begin to ask yourself, what kind of leaders do we need around this time? We need the kind of leaders who are conscious. In the first instance, who would put Africans and Africa first, and then believe that we have enough natural resources and human resource that should be able to make us advance further and better than the Chinese, the Koreans, the Russians, the Americans, and the other Europeans whom we are trying to align to either to the right or to the left. The absence of conscious leadership, leaders who are Pan-Africanists, leaders who are concerned about the development of their enclaves and the continent of Africa as a whole, the absence of that, I believe, is what is causing the kind of problems we are having. Post-colonization bequeathed to us certain kind or types of leaders. And these leaders seem to project African Pan-Africanism, African consciousness, and Africans taking over the arms of affairs in terms of administration and governance and all that. And for several of these leaders who had the capacity to be able to bring some form of transformation, they were eliminated. Kwame Nkrumah is one of them, Olympio is one of them, Patrice M.S. Lumumba is one of them. Severally, there was a Western agenda to truncate the kind of aspirations that Africa had at the time. And so a certain crop of leadership emerged in the late 50s and 60s. These leaders were severally and systematically removed by European acts. And so it takes us back to history, that if you deal with the question of neo-colonialism,
right,
you are dealing with it on the part of kind of leaders who are conscious about the continent and have aspirations to make us better than the other parts of the world.
Okay, so
in the absence of that, we cannot make any progress that we anticipate.
You make the point about the people being the major denominator if this narrative has to change. What should the people be looking out for in the process of, for instance, choosing a leader?
I think the degree of, if you like, for lack of depth and understanding about what governance and democracy is all about, that the people must be able to school themselves to know that we cannot build a continent like ours based on party affiliation. So that if I wear a branded T-shirt of, say, NDC, MPP, PNC, or any, or EFF, or ANC in South Africa, I should just follow that party sheepishly, even when the party or the leadership is not offering anything good. So we must come back to civic education. We must come back to civic consciousness when it comes to the citizenry of the state. They must be interested in development, and they must not sacrifice development for anything, because the state must be responsible for the good of the citizens. And the state actors are those who engineer that process. The citizens must be interested in ensuring that state actors are bringing or producing or providing the public good. And that is all what they should look for. They should not look at them, whether they have charisma or not in terms of leadership, or whether they have fine faces or they are ugly, whether they are short or tall, or whether they are, relatives or friends or even enemies. They must look at their own political party with a certain eye. That kind of eye that is, if you like, odorless, colorless, and tasteless. That is interested in only seeking for the collective good of the country and to ensure that development is the only denominator that they should be interested in pursuing. In the absence of that, when we come to other discourses, i.e., party affiliation, filial affiliations, the other forms of associations that we have with politics on the continent, then we will achieve nothing. So I call for that kind of consciousness for the citizenry that is, contingent on development and development alone that they should look for. When that is overlooked, then you can have some grammarians who come and speak, and they have acquired and borrowed foreign accents. And in as much as they can speak with some degree of ebullience and eloquence, we vote them into power. But they are empty barrels who come to make the most noise. So citizens must be interested in those who come to build the state. And they should only be interested in development and nothing else. It doesn't matter who is placed in the helms of affairs. Development must be the common denominator in terms of reflecting on national development and discourse.
Professor Edujemfi, as always, appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, my brother.
Professor Samuel Edujemfi is Senior History and Political Studies Lecturer at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, sharing his thoughts there with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Now, still staying on issues of leadership, Asante Otumfuo Osei II has distilled the chief of Adomwa in the Efija Kwabre district of the Ashanti region. Nana Osei III Abebio is said to have been implicated in a myriad of controversies, including multiple land-related disputes with other chiefs. He's also being accused of violating some customary processes and procedures. Delivering his verdict, the Asantehen indicated that after serving caution to the chief to desist from his actions, he failed to heed his calls. Otumfuo, who sternly expressed his displeasure at the chief's non-adherence to his caveats, thus ordered that the royal slipper Nana Osei III Abebio wore be removed. That's Otumfuo Osei II there, delivering his verdict there, and that earlier decision has communicated the distillment of the chief of Edomwa in the Efija Kwabre district of the Ashanti region. And this is a developing story that we are following quite closely. This is the second chief in less than a week that Otumfuo Osei II has distilled in the Ashanti region. But the Economic Fighters League, there's a statement that has just come through. The Economic Fighters League observed with disgust the series of events taken by various stakeholders of neocolonialism following the military coup in Niger. They say that they want to condemn in no uncertain terms the attempts by France to maintain a stronghold on African people, land and resources, and the shameful decision made by ECOWAS to mobilize troops against Niger. Now, every day, the African political elite show us, the Ghanaian people, and by extent, the larger continent, with contempt. Under neoliberal misrule, they force us to exist under systems that are killing, and they sell people, resources, and land without shame, operating in service of those who would destroy us. And that's the position that the Economic Fighters League has taken, in a bit to, as it were, also make their position quite clear on the happenings in Niger. But in a bit to reduce traffic and create a conducive business environment, the Greater Accra Regional Coordinating Council has served notice to restrict the movement of motorized tricycles. 13 out of the 29 metropolitan municipal and district assemblies within the region are expected to formulate bylaws for implementation. The Greater Accra Regional Coordinating Council, in a statement, restricted the operations of these tricycles within the Central Business District and some principal streets in Accra, saying the tricycles cause heavy traffic congestion, chaotic scenes, with indiscriminate parking and flouting of traffic regulations. The restriction is therefore to create a conducive environment for businesses to thrive and for the comfort of travelers. At the Bobloshi market at Old Fadama, tricycle operators were busily going about their business without any knowledge of the new directive. And they tell our correspondent Grace Hamwa Ajiman the directive will impede their work.
This is where most of us get our income from to cater for ourselves. So without using this pragya, I think that one will affect us a lot. We are students here. All of us here, we are students. Due to the poverty in our families, we found ourselves here doing businesses. And in Accra here, it is so hard for you to get business that will be able to give you money easily. Before you get that business, you need to suffer before you get it. So as I came here in Accra, this is the business I think if I am involved myself in, I'll be able to get money to cater for myself and even some of my brothers. So that is why I am here. It isn't that riding this thing is very sweet that we are doing it. It's because of money we are all struggling here. So I think if they should say here we shouldn't use pragya, that one will affect we the students a lot.
School na me ko no me ye met man ya juma papa bia aye nti se almost pa me asisi a me na juma bia ambesa aye bio na me ntimi nya ska so nko school no so bio wa na me so me kakra se me de kakra to na me di kakra so mo pa me a me so me ni a one bia me di be construction na we anyway.
It's a big problem. Because me myself, without money, I can't further up. And in case if I'm not able to go to school, this one, it will create high.
But is pragya the only business for you to do?
No, please, but I think I'm getting money from it, and it can cater for me and even my family too.
I had some reactions there, and the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafwewa, has called on organized labour to remain calm as 2024 salary negotiations will begin in the next few weeks. The sector minister made the appeal to the labour unions at an ongoing discussion between affiliate unions of TUC in Accra. Let's take a listen to the minister.
The reason or cause for the situation we are in is simply, let us put it as it is.
I think if the minister is requesting for calm, the time is overdue. And the process is going to start very soon. We are consulting with the various stakeholders because, it is not government that determines the base pay or the daily minimum wage. It is done by a body, i.e. the tripartite constituent. So we need to get to each of the tripartite members and get to know which date will be convenient so that we start. But I want to assure you that we're going to start soon, and this time around I will want to assure you that we'll be able to finish in a good time so that all the necessary inputs that ought to be made into the 2024 budget will be done appropriately. But I assure you that we'll be able to finish in a good time so that the necessary input into the budget will be done.
Meanwhile, the minister has also been making some remarks on the Asogli dismissed workers issue. According to him, 3 dismissed unionized workers of Sonona Asogli will get justice and possibly be reinstated.
That is a case that has come before us and also to the commission. And I indicated that, yes, we've not come to a finality on it yet. So we'll continue to explore all the avenues that are available to us so that justice will be given to that whom justice is due.
But the case is before the Council of State has gone through the presidency, the chief of staff to even the Chinese embassy and then the Chinese and all that.
Well, I'm not aware of some of the bodies that you are mentioning. But what I do know that the case is before the ministry and the commission, and we are still working on it. We have not come. We've not actually closed the docket on it yet.
As the Minister of Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Bafoy, were there. Let's go straight to the Northeast region, where we understand 5 persons have reportedly died from the floods that hit parts of the Northeast region. The 5th body was retrieved from a bridge around 1:30 p.m. earlier today by the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO team. This has heightened concerns of food insecurity in some parts of the country as flooding continues to wreak havoc in the region and also destroy farmlands. Parts of the West Mamprushi and East Mamprushi areas have been submerged following rains which lasted for about 4 hours last Wednesday and over the weekend. A number of houses, farmlands, livestock and valuable items were washed away by flood waters. Boreholes and hand-dug wells have also been polluted, affecting food production. Our Northern Regional correspondent is crossing over to the Northeast region now. Christopher Mwako is joining us live from one of the affected communities with some updates. Christopher, what's going on where you are?
Okay, so Alfred, these farmers continue to count their losses after the floods that inundated their farmlands and homes. And like you rightly mentioned, the 5th body was retrieved earlier today around 1:30 p.m., bringing the death toll to 5. This time around, the East Mamprusi municipality recorded 2 deaths. West Mamprusi recorded 2, and the Yuyo Naswa district recorded 1. There are several incidents of farmlands and communities being damaged in water around the Wenchiki area in the Chirponi district, which also falls under the Northeast region. So the entire region across the 6 administrative MDAs has all been affected.
Now, talk about the interventions by NADMO and then the Municipal Assembly as well. What's going on?
Yes, apart from some relief items that NADMO sent to the community, the affected communities, that was on Friday, last week Friday, there hasn't been any relief item from any other organization or institution to these victims. Now, the Member of Parliament for the area, as well as the various assemblies, have been appealing to philanthropists and other organizations to come to their support, because we are talking about a whole lot of thousands of people who have been affected, and with the relief items that were sent on Friday, it could not reach all the affected victims. So they are still in need of relief items, especially food, because their farmlands and other food items that they had stored in their homes have all been destroyed by the floods.
Chris, appreciate your update. Thank you so much. Christopher Mako is our Northeast regional correspondent there. It's 15 minutes to the 6 p.m. here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Remember, we're live as well on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. And Nanekia Mensa Brampa is here with business news.
Right, Alfred. Good to see you.
Tomorrow, the next pricing window is taking effect tomorrow.
Tomorrow, right? Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's. I think I saw one from the Is it IES?
Yes.
Yes, IES is also predicting 5.7 actually.
So it's consistent.
So it's within the range. So it's.
Normally,
it's
what happens the night before the next pricing window. Most of the fuel stations will declare artificial shortage.
Yeah.
You will drive there and say, oh, no fuel.
And so, I don't want to mention names this evening, but this morning I was at 3 outlets. The same OMC, oil marketing guy, they said they don't have fuel and they are yet to restock. So this is just a typical example of what you're saying.
Lord. Anyway.
Well, the GRA has been doing the most. Managers of 3 hotels in the Greater Accra region have been arrested by the police for failing to issue value-added tax invoices. The facilities are Mascot Hotel, Dansuman in Dansuman, Legacy Hotel in North Kaneshi, and Kigali Hotel in Sakaman Estate. While the 4th company, Silver Clouds, is a wholesale supermarket that issues the VAT invoice selectively to customers, an act that contradicts the VAT law. The Accra Area Enforcement Team Assistant Commissioner of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Joseph Annan, says the culprits will aid the police in investigations as part of efforts or enforcement of the test purchase program being implemented by the authority.
Last year, the collection for VAT was 646, thereabout, million cedis, Ghana cedis. This year, it has jumped up to 1.2 billion averagely. That is by Bank of Ghana governance report. They established, collection for VAT, which works up to around 92.4% increase in the growth of VAT.
And that was the Assistant Commissioner of the Accra Area Enforcement Team of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Findings from the Ghana 2022 Trade Vulnerability Report indicates that 4 countries, Switzerland, China, Canada, and South Africa, account for over half of all exports. Meanwhile, 6 other countries, China, UK, Netherlands, USA, India, and Switzerland, are the source of about half of all imports. Professor Samuel Kobna is the government statistician.
From an export point of view, we are getting about 43.3 billion Ghana cedis from the export of mineral fuels and other oils. And then once you turn the picture on the other way in terms of imports, given the different classifications, 20.2 billion Ghana cedis, 14.7 billion Ghana cedis, and 4.8 billion Ghana cedis. What is very striking for us with this particular classification, although we see a 4.3 billion Ghana cedis between the export of mineral fuels and oils, as against the imports of the same classification, minerals, fuels, and oils, it begs the question whether we have fully harnessed the natural resource that since 2011 we've been enjoying. That is why we pose the question, what would have been the picture here prior to 2011? And going forward, what is the strategy to ensure that we see a reverse of this with a much wider gap between the exportation of mineral fuels and oils and the importation of same?
Professor Samuel Kobna Enim is the government statistician. Meanwhile, commenting on the development, Associate Professor at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Charles Godfred Aka, stated that Ghana will continue to seek support from the IMF if the country does not diversify its international trade patterns.
Can pick such industries, maybe 20 of them, 30 of them, 50 of them, and government can support them with all the tax incentives, all the export, facilitation to make sure that they have access to cheap credit, they have access to training, and they're able to export almost all over the world. When you have such exporters, which I call the strikers, the goal scorers, then you can get more export revenue as they come in. So I think that's where we need to look at.
Associate Professor at the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Charles Alfred Ocansey there. And just before we go, the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana is calling for up to 50% involvement of women in the aggregation system under the Phase 2 of the Planting for Food and Jobs program. Speaking to the media during a workshop, Executive Director of the association, Dr. Charles Nyaba, stressed this was critical to ensuring a boost in women participation in the agricultural sector.
We have less than 10% of women were benefiting in any form to aggregate produce, to do marketing, and to do value addition. And then if you look at the women themselves, contribution to the entire value chain, in terms of processing, in terms of production, in terms of marketing, they constitute about 70%. So how can 70% of people who are contributing to a sector receiving less than 30% of support that is coming to the sector? Okay, so we are not too satisfied with that, and then we think that we'll draw lessons from that and ensure that at least, if for nothing at all, 50% of support that is coming under the PFJ2 should direct towards women.
Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, Dr. Charles Nyaba, speaking there. And that ends it for Business on Hot Edition. Log on to 3news.com for more news updates. My name is Nana Ekwia Mensa Abrampa. Owe Kwampa for standing by with the latest in the world of sport.
Well, thank you very much, Nana. I'll be starting off from the Women's World Cup, where Spain have reached their first ever Women's World Cup final after beating Sweden 2-1 in a dramatic semi-final encounter. Spain captain Olga Carmona struck a late minute equalizer, crashing the ball in off the bar to ensure La Roya made history as they now await the final of the Australia versus England game. Midfielder of the three Lionesses, that's Kira Walsh, dreams of playing in the final.
I think it obviously will be a massive result. I think it's hard to compare the two. I think winning a trophy like that on home soil, it's always got a different feel to it. But then again, we're at a World Cup, so yeah, I think it's every footballer's dream is to play in a World Cup final. So yeah, I think for us, that's obviously the aim, and hopefully we can get the job done on Wednesday.
And so that was Kieran Walsh speaking ahead of the game between England and co-host Australia. But let's do some more here and talk about Chelsea's latest signing. That's Moises Caicedo. Now, he says that he wants to become a club legend at his new club. The Ecuadorian joined the London club from Brighton for a British record deal of £115 million.
Excited to be here. I can't wait to start with the guys. Yeah, I support Chelsea when I was a kid because I saw a lot of players in the midfield like Makelele or N'Golo Kante. They were my inspiration for me to support Chelsea as well. I'm here to be a great player, to help to the team, to become a legend in this amazing club. Every year I have to do my best for this amazing club, one of the biggest club in.
Well, that was Moises Caicedo speaking after joining Chelsea. But let's move to other Premier League news. Manchester United had a match yesterday where they picked up a narrow 1-0 win over Wolves in their opening game of the season on Monday. Erik ten Hag admits his team could have done better on the night.
Today, I think we can be much better on the ball. We have proven in this last season and also in pre-season, but there you see pre-season is not season. When the league starts, opponents are more aggressive, and that we have seen from Wolves. They were very aggressive. I think we were in our skills, we could be better in decision making, and then when we were in the battle, we were not aggressive enough. So from that point of view, we can do a lot of things better, but also I see many positive things from this.
Well, that was Manchester United coach Erik ten Hag. But the match was full of drama as the away side were denied a penalty in the final minutes of the game. Now, match referee Simon Hooper VAR referee Michael Salisbury and assistant VAR Richard West have all been dropped for next weekend, and so essentially the officials will not be selected for a Premier League game in the second round of fixtures. Onana, however, who is the Cameroonian goalkeeper and goal for Manchester United, is still adamant the referees were right not to award a penalty.
Through the referees, like I always say, goalkeepers, the mistake is around the post, so you make decisions. Sometimes you are right, sometimes not. I made the decision and I'm responsible for everything. For me, it was just a contact between two big guys, and I was calm. I knew nothing would happen there. But like I said, for us, it was the most important thing for us. It was to win. I'm very happy for the victory.
So you're very...
Well, that was Andrew Onana there speaking. But before we go, not the news that Manchester City fans wanted to hear, because Kevin De Bruyne is expected to be out for a long while after aggravating the hamstring injury that he picked up in last season's UEFA Champions League final. Pep Guardiola, who was speaking ahead of the UEFA Super Cup against Sevilla on Wednesday, stated the club are considering surgery for the Belgian.
Is James McAtee also an option this season, or
yeah, of course.
Is he going to stay with you rather than go out on loan?
No, first of all, I had to say the injury for Kevin is a blow for us, so it's a big loss. Kevin having specific qualities and that you can lose it, for 1 game, 2 games, but for a long time it's really, really tough for us. But at the same time, you have to look forward, and of course we have alternatives there, differing skills, because the skills for Kevin is irreplaceable, but we have a different talent players, and it's an opportunity. Life gives you that, when there's an injury, you have an opportunity for the other one. So, and I'm pretty sure they will take it.
Well, Manchester City face Sevilla in the UEFA Super Cup. Remember, that's between the Champions League winners and the Europa League winners. And so that showdown will come off tomorrow and at Athens, Greece, to find out who is essentially the ultimate European champion from last season. But that's how we wrap up the sports segment here on Hot Edition. Entertainment is up next with Akofa.
Thank you very much, Oriku, for the update in the world of sports. You're still tuned in to 3FM 92.7. It's now time to get into the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition. We start with award-winning music duo Dope Nation, who are on a move to creating a unique sound with their artistry. Speaking in an interview, the duo noted that creatives need to take full advantage of the attention on African music, which is fast becoming a global sensation.
If you listen to those two, there are elements of Hamas tunes in there. Yeah, and what we are trying to do is we are trying to churn a new sound.
Okay.
The name of the sound is Ghana Piano.
Ghana Piano?
Yes.
The Niger people won't be happy.
Why? Yeah,
they said they are the ones that have made Amapiano what it is today.
Yeah, but this is not to fight anyone's intellectual property. We are just trying to give credence to everybody, and at the same time try to churn a new sound. The reason why it's Ghana is because we are taking old and new sounds from the Ghana culture as in musically, and we merge it on the piano. So if you listen to Goza, you hear these elements and it's on the piano. That's why we changed the name Ghana Piano. And it's not because we just, we woke up and then we came about with the name. We have friends who are producers in South Africa that actually opened their doors to us, their workstation. And we saw how they made their beats, learned the elements, and then decided to make this type of sound. So if you realize, you can hear the Amapiano instruments, but it's like it's a Ghanaian sound.
I see.
Exactly so.
But don't you think that people are going to say, but why are you jumping on the piano? Why don't you also create something unique? Because once you mention Amapiano, everybody knows it is South African. So Ghana Piano sort of looks like you're copying the South Africans, and we still can't seem to find a unique identity for ourselves.
Our fundamentals when it comes to music is even copying in the first place.
Wait, what?
Our fundamentals when it comes to music is copying in the first place.
Yeah.
Because when you take our progressions and melodies and they are from old songs, we just bite them and then create them into something new. So we can't say we are creating something new. It can't happen because the keys and the melodies are just there and they have been exhausted. The only thing you can do is to make them evolve. And the new sounds we have now is the piano and Afrobeat.
Yes.
So.
And I think we didn't do well with the growth of Afrobeat, especially when it was coming in Ghana, and I think we should also look out for what is happening. The world is now listening to Africa, and the world is like literally listening to piano now. So we feel like this is the time.
And you heard Dope Nation there in an interview with Bella Mundi. And before I go, let's turn our attention to the tourism industry, where the Minister of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Mohammed Awal, has announced that the government will be launching a project to solicit novel tourism ideas from young people. During his address at an editors' forum, he said the initiative is aimed at injecting the interest of tourism in the youth and to encourage them to come up with innovative business models for the sector. He said, quote, next year we are going to launch 100 million city tourism enterprise project to encourage young people to give us projects on sustainable tourism. He also noted that next year the ministry will be training 6,000 young people along the tourism value chain. These people will include cooks, security, tour guides, among others. According to the minister, the most important thing in tourism is to get people to repeatedly visit places, a reason they are devising strategies to make tourists develop interest in frequently coming to Ghana. And that ends it for the entertainment news segment here on Hot Edition, powered by 3 Entertainment. My name is Akofa. Join me later at 8 p.m. for Wind Down. And on behalf of Alfred and the rest of the team, we say thank you for joining us on Hot Edition. Is on your radio every Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. right here on 3FM 92.7. For more news, log on to 3news.com. The 3FM Drive team takes over.